All right, I figured I'd try to do a little something a little different here. We're gonna watch the science channel on how pellets are made. That way, it gives you everybody a little bit more of an idea of what goes on behind the scenes to make pellets. I want to apologize. I'll be doing some pausing quite often here to explain a few things a little more in detail. Plus, it's just kind of like a reaction explaining on everything else, so I don't get a copyright strike.
Unlike a conventional wood stove that burns firewood, a pellet stove uses wood pellets as fuel. Made from lumber byproducts such as sawdust and wood chips, which would otherwise end up as waste, pellets burn more efficiently and more cleanly than wood and produce very little air pollution.
Quadrifier, a very good stove. Expensive, but they are a very good stove.
A pellet stove has an onboard storage container called a hopper that holds, depending on the model, up to 80 pounds of wood pellets.
Now he said on this stove, this particular stove manufacturer says up to 80 pounds. I've explained it. I said before, mine is a tractor supply stove made by U.S. Stove Company. Mine is called a King KP 130. The 130 stands for a 130-pound hopper. I could put 3 full bags in mine, plus a little more. Again, manufacturers do different sizes.
Several computer chips monitor the stove's heating.
Now right here you can see where some of the pellets have bounced out of the burn pot. Now I don't know of any stove that doesn't have pellets bounce out.
Performance, dictating the rate at which the hopper automatically feeds pellets into the stove's fire pot. The heat output is manually adjustable or can be controlled by a thermostat.
Depending on the manufacturer too, some shut down completely. Then when the thermostat calls for heat, it'll come on. My stove does not do that. Mine will come on, runs all the time, small flame till it's calling for heat, and then once it calls for heat, it speeds up, gives me a high fire, lots of heat. Then it'll satisfied, it'll kick off and go back to a small flame.
Wood pellets burn far more cleanly than logs, and the fire is smoke-free. Wood pellets are made from a variety of raw materials: sawdust, wood chips, wood shavings, small logs, even scraps of wood.
If you go back a few seconds, you'll see there's a big pile of sawdust in the back with these wood chips. They mix the sawdust and wood chips together to get blend together. You'll see later on here, and I'll explain.
Wood left over from furniture and other manufacturing. These different types of lumber byproducts first have to be reduced to the same size and consistency. Therefore, the first stop is a huge grinding machine. Inside, mammoths.
Now this is called the green hammer mill. This conveyor, very wide conveyor. I'd never seen one of those up in this area, but moves at a very slow pace. It feeds at the very top. You see those fingers rotating. That's just helping break the clumps up and stuff like that to drop down into the green hammer mill, which has, say, half-inch wide screens underneath. They'll run it through, grind it up to half, 3/4 of an inch in size.
Steel hammers pulverize the raw material to uniform pieces. The raw material contains about 45% moisture, so it goes into a dryer to reduce the moisture level to between 11 and 12%.
Now with these dryers and these chips, what a lot of people don't know about is these chips, they said 45% moisture, okay? When they run it through the dryer, they lose approximately 50 to 60% of their weight in moisture. That's why you see steam coming out of the stacks out of any type of a pellet mill. That is not smoke, that is steam. That's moisture from the chips. That's green chips that's going into the dryer from the green hammer mill.
So what was rough raw material has now been ground to a finer state and dried. But it's still not fine enough. so it goes into a mill.
That is the dry hammer mill. After the dryer, it goes into the dry hammer mill. Dry hammer mill, say 3/8 of a hole, maybe smaller, maybe larger, depending on what size they want to run. And the green hammer mill was, say, 3/4 of an inch hole. It's just what size they want to run it through the dryer, and then what they want after the dry hammer mill.
Which processes it further until it's roughly the size of rice grains. A feed pipe transfers what is now wood fiber to a row of presses.
This stuff coming through here is what I've always been told is called meal, because it's what feeds the pellet machine. And it just runs through these augers here to help keep it from clumping up.
These are the machines which make the pellets. The moisture content of the fiber is critical. If it's too wet, the pellet presses risk clogging up.
On the very top of these two pellet mills here, you'll see a tube with an auger. That is a conditioner. If the chips are too dry, they can add moisture in to bring it up to the moisture content they want.
That's why each pellet press has a readout displaying the fiber moisture level. As an added measure, the factory draws fiber samples and sends them to the quality control lab for analysis. It's essential for the stability of the pellets that the moisture be at the ideal level. Excess moisture would eventually evaporate, breaking the pellets apart. So to analyze the moisture content, the lab technicians weigh a sample, heat it to a high temperature to evaporate the moisture, then reweigh. The analyzer is programmed to translate the weight loss into a reading of moisture content. The pellet press is a large drum with perforated rollers inside.
Now, to explain what you see in here is on the door is at the very top, you see the opening. That is where the meal drops down in, goes down that little deflector to the bottom of the pellet press itself.
The holes are pellet width, 2/10 of an inch in diameter. As the drum rotates, the rollers apply pressure. This compresses the fiber by 400% and extrudes it outward through the holes. A knife slices the extruding fiber at programmed intervals, cutting it into lengths of about 1 2/10 inches.
Now, if you notice right here, there are some darker pellets. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. It's just the heat when they're being pressed through the die. Some of them it happens on some of them because they don't get enough meal behind them to help push them through all that fast. But that's some nice looking pellets right there.
The compression generates heat which draws out the tree sap still contained in the wood fiber. This sap, called lignin, acts as an adhesive, locking in the pellet shape. The journey from raw material.
Here's a good breakdown of what the products looks like each stage of processing. From your green chips going into the green hammer mill, coming out of your green hammer mill, going through the dryer, to the dry hammer mill, then after the pellet press. That's your steps. Sounds easy, but it is not.
To pellet is now complete. The pellets, however, are still quite warm and sticky, so they clump together. The solution? About 15 minutes in a cooler. As the room temperature air blows through the pellets, cooling and drying the tacky lignin, the pellets separate from each other. Some of the processed raw material ends up in too fine a state to become pellets. So as the pellets exit the cooler, a vibrating screen filters out this sawdust-like material, which incidentally doesn't go to waste. The factory uses it to fuel the dryer. The pellets, meanwhile, proceed to packaging. It's a continuous system. The machine feeds printed plastic film around a cylindrical tube, forming the shape of the bag. Then it drops in 40 pounds of pellets and seals the top of the bag, simultaneously forming the bottom of the next one. Wood pellet stoves are fast becoming a popular means of home heating. And because pellets cost significantly less than most
The one thing they do not show in this video is the palletizing and the wrapping of the product, which is no big deal. Most of them are all the same. Some use a robot, some use people. This particular facility, I would assume, is a robot and with a fully automatic wrapping.
Other types of fuel, wood pellet systems are an emerging option for commercial and industrial heating.
I hope this video was good for you. Go over to the Science Channel, like their channel, give them the credit they deserve, because this is their video. I'm using this to try to help explain a little different from my inside perspective of these things. Please like, share, subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the video. Comment, because it really helps get the video out in the algorithm. Please stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.